Have you ever wondered why they don't call sushi cold dead fish? Don't name it what it is. When you define a product, when you define, an offering, how do you think about, how do you position it, and how do you name it? So that has stuck with me, and I use that to this day when people come to me with brilliant product names and stuff, and I'm like, well, is that like cold dead fish, or is that in the sushi category? My name's Klaus Osterman. I'm the CEO of IGEL. I'm having a coffee with Tech Informed. So I normally do espressos. So I'll do in the morning double espresso with either hot milk or hot coconut milk. I love coconut. And people normally say if I get 2 or 3 of those, they say, Klaus, you probably got too much espresso. So I try and kind of keep it in balance. But I do love my morning coconut cortado is the favorite one. So because I had a friend whose father was at IBM. It always sounded very interesting. So it's probably more the IT industry and the company IBM rather than the industry itself. So I found my way into IBM at the age of 19 and then, took my degrees while I was at IBM. So I basically got trained there, and that's how I really got into, more and more technical stuff. I learned a lot of things in my career, moving between go-to-market and product and so forth. Growing up in Europe, moving to the US, things are very different from how you explain things and position things. And in Europe, as an example, you're taught, you got to have all the facts on the table. You got to put everything out there before you can get to the conclusion. In the US, it's like start with the conclusion or you lose people's attention in 30 seconds. People don't really care about all the details. They want, the kind of the conclusion, and then they want to learn about the details, whereas it's kind of a very different approach in Europe. I'm not a born entertainer, so some people are born with that gene. I'm not. I typically say I'm more like a plow horse than a show horse, right? So I've had to train myself on, how to present, and I think a lot of people are a lot better than me at presenting, but that's, one aspect that I'd had to work with over the years. I think it's just more about becoming comfortable in your own skin, whether it's 500 people or 5 people or 5,000 people. It's like, doesn't matter. Once you've been in front of 5,000 people, then, it's less intimidating. So, but the first time was very intimidating. I think EUC kind of the definition has changed over the years, right? And I think it's ever changing, right? And I think IGEL is a company that's driving a lot of change within it right now, because we're basically expanding the definition and what you need to look at. End user compute really, meets like, well, there's an end user out there, and how do you present things to them, right? So this has been very closely tied with the movement of VDI, virtual desktop, and desktop as a service and so forth. And now you're seeing a big change come in with where a lot of customers are starting to use browser technologies as an integrated part. So some might be delivered via VDI, other things via browser and so forth. So it's a constantly changing landscape from a deployment standpoint. How do you serve the information to people, and what endpoints do they have? And then things have changed a lot, I'd say in the last 5, 7, 10 years because of security, because of the security risk, because of the onslaught of ransomware attacks and so forth. So security is all now all of a sudden, really at the forefront of, so you got to think that through. And that's basically with our preventive security model that we've launched. It's taking all these different components. What are you presenting to the user? How are you doing that? How are you delivering it? How do you deliver it through secure networks? How do you tie in identity access management? How do you tie in what hardware is available to you and so forth? And then looking more holistically at that as a model rather than 3 different disciplines. That's what's changing very dramatically and very fast. And I think IGEL is one of the companies that's really driving the forefront of where can you take this. And not just for end users, because you're starting to see that a lot of people that are in charge of end user compute now is also being put in charge of OT in banks and so forth. So all of a sudden they have to take care of the facilities and the building infrastructure. And that's a lot of things that don't complain, but you're going to make sure that it's secure. So all of a sudden you're expanding for many customers what what this whole definition is and how you look at it. I've thought about that one. Our little wine business is a project between my daughter and I. We've been making wine for, what is that now? 15 years. Us focusing on a few vineyards where, we think they produce amazing fruit in Napa and Sonoma, and then just producing what we think is phenomenal wine. And when you make wine, it's about understanding, blending things. So there's some parallels to software development, right? Where it's like it takes time to develop good software. You don't just hack it up and then put it on bottle and get it out there. So you really gotta work on what are the different elements. How do you blend it together? So there's probably been some learnings I've had from that I can use in my daily job in high tech. So. I think when you look at browser technology and so forth, I think it's a key element in how you're going to serve information, applications, and so forth in the future. So I think it's a foundational shift that's taking place. Longer term, clearly that's going to be a strong direction. I think a lot of customers are still going to be using VDI and DAS and those kind of techniques for certain user groups and for certain areas. So both are going to be around for a long time. I think when you look at the AI aspect, how can you leverage AI at your endpoint to basically optimize resolution, to optimize power consumption, and how you basically shift between NPU and GPU and get a more efficient setup. There are longer term some very, very big concerns on my part around AI and everybody having AI on the desktop and the security aspect, because if you look at the foundational functionality, you can basically map out everything you have on your computer very easily. So if you get access to that, it can be served on a silver platter for bad people. So you really need to protect that. So I think that brings in some whole new aspects, whole new dimensions of how you're going to build security for the endpoints in the future. I think shorter term, if you look at just for the next year, we clearly see customers looking at browsing technology, implementing that. We see even individual customers want to go all in and just say, that's all we're going to do. And it does bring some security aspects around that's very important, because that needs to be founded in what I call a secure socket, basically a very secure operating system. And that's where IGEL plays a major role with companies like IGEL Browser. If you look at Citrix and their enterprise browser, other companies as well. We're just seeing the forefront of that right now, but next year it's going to be a dramatic change. So I think every year you'll see very dramatic change on that.